Are we looking at only a skinny deal, or could we have a more comprehensive deal between the UK and the EU?
It'll be comprehensive in terms of coverage if there is a deal. So it'll, not just be about trade. It's also possibly about security cooperation, aviation, transport, lots of other things in there. So in that sense, it'd be quite wide-ranging. But in terms of what we used to call a sort of deep deal with the EU, so something that implied very good market access to the EU in return for a lot of UK regulatory alignment with the EU, that's something that this government has not been interested in. It says it wants a sort of free trade deal that the EU has done with much more distant countries like Canada and Japan. So we're looking at the skinny end of deals, but it might have quite a lot of chapters about quite a lot of things that you might not see in a normal free trade deal.
What happens to finance? So we have a great story that's really getting a bit of a buzz, and I urge everyone to go and really read it on the website or our Bloomberg terminal, which basically says London is thrown to the lions as a Brexit finance deal unlikely. What does happen to finance?
What happens to finance is finance isn't really part of this negotiation. As part of the political declaration last year, it was agreed that both sides would try to give equivalence decisions in the summer. That didn't happen. So that was going to be a decision on whether UK firms could continue to passport into the EU and vice versa. The UK has made its decision on the EU. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, our Treasury Secretary, Finance Minister, made his decision to give EU firms access a couple of weeks back. We're still waiting on that decision from the EU. It's technically separate from all these trade negotiations. But I think quite a lot of people would look at the way in which the EU has dealt, say, with Switzerland in the past, and would say that actually, if there is no trade deal, a financial services equivalence decision isn't likely to be forthcoming on a very quick timetable. One of the things the UK did want was to look and see whether there are mechanisms for saying, let's make that a sort of deeper cooperation. One of the things people don't like about equivalence is it can be unilaterally withdrawn at 30 days' notice. That's not a great basis for building big businesses on the back of. So the UK did originally float some ideas for, much more cooperation, free notification, longer time periods, but I'm not sure we expect to see that in any sort of deal.
And Francine knows this better than anyone. People are leaving the UK. People are leaving London. Big banks are shifting operations outside of the nation in order to be within the EU. I'm wondering, do we have a sense or an estimate of what the financial hit to the United Kingdom has been and will be as a result of these shifts?
I don't think we know that yet. At the moment, there have been some jobs moved and some assets moved, but it's not been enormous yet. I think, one of the questions is, does one of the EU capitals manage to build up as a significant financial centre over time? I think the key thing there, though, you're quite right. I mean, we talk a lot about the impact on different firms. I think for these big financial services firms, many of them started to move last year when we kept on marching up the hill and down again about whether there would be a no-deal exit last year. So I think a lot of them have moved already. They've started to make those preparations, moved some assets, some people. So far, not made a big move yet, but to ensure that they're able to continue to service their European customers from a European base. I think that's one of the really interesting things is those firms, they'll continue, they'll take a bit of extra cost, but they'll manage to have business continuity. The big loser is the British economy, both in terms of GDP, but also the financial services sector. Sort of 8% of the British economy is a big contributor to tax revenues. It is a very high value-adding, very highly taxed sector, even if some people might like to tax it a bit more. And I think that's a potential risk for the government down the line if a lot of that business transfers over to the continent, a lot more than we've seen so far.